Hello, everybody out there, and good morning. This is Morgan Denny, lead faculty with the Primary Care Physical Therapy Division for the Institute of Clinical Excellence, here on the PT on Ice Daily Show on Tuesday. So, as you may have noticed, the world is in a very interesting state right now. Many things are changing. Medical care is shifting. The way people act around each other is changing. And among all those things that are changing include kind of how people are handling or managing their health. So as COVID has taken over the healthcare system in all senses of the manner, people are becoming more and more afraid to seek out care. There are numbers out that show crazy decreases in the amount of outpatient visits to both specialists and primary care providers. The Commonwealth Fund put out a study a few weeks ago that actually showed that in outpatient visits, there was a 60% decrease in that number across March and April. And while there has been an increase in telehealth and telemedicine type of visits, those only kind of span about a 10% gap of those visits lost. So we're kind of walking into a time frame where people have many conditions that are not being managed. They're skipping annual appointments. They're not getting things checked regularly. There are even cancer patients who are not gaining treatment because hospitals are either overcrowded or patients are so fearful to go to the hospital that they're not seeking care soon enough or feel that the symptoms they're having are not serious enough in comparison to what might happen if they got COVID. So in general, people are just afraid to go to the doctor or the hospital, and understandably, right? Like, we're seeing crazy amounts of disease and in ways that we don't necessarily scientifically completely comprehend and understand how to control yet. And so it's kind of a scary time. But with this lack of standardized care, we have to remember that even though COVID has taken over our medical system, before COVID, there were still all sorts of diseases out there that were terrible for people that were being managed, at least somewhat managed, right? And now that COVID has taken over the medical system, we're going to find that a lot of those diseases have just been kind of let to do their own thing, with people afraid to go see their doctor, afraid to get their blood tested. I mean, I don't know about you, but even some of my telehealth patients have said, you know, I did this telehealth conference with my doctor, and normally I'd have a blood test every year, but they said, no, let's just skip it. So even healthcare practitioners are becoming afraid of the medical systems that they work in themselves. So I think it's important that we start to take this stuff on board and understand that as PTs, we need to step up our game. So while people are afraid to go to the doctor, to get their blood tested, to get their eyes checked, all those things, a lot of times those things are management strategies. Like, I know my blood pressure is too high and I'm on some meds, but it doesn't bother me day to day, right? Because people don't feel that their blood pressure is high necessarily. But people do feel that their back hurts. They feel that they can't walk down the block. They feel that their shoulder is aching and they can't sleep. People are more likely to come to physical therapists at this point in time, whether it is in a clinic in a safe way or whether it's via telehealth. They're more likely to come see us because the problems that they're seeing us for are more immediate in their personal feeling about their need to be addressed and identified. So whereas before we were seeing patients that were probably being assessed by primary care clinicians, we're going to step into a world, we're already in it, people. We're already in this world where people are getting underevaluated, undertreated, less assessed. So there are going to be all these sorts of disease patterns, whether they are heart disease, mental illness, other cardiovascular problems, diabetes, that are all going to miss being caught at that primary care assessment where they took your blood sugar, where they looked at your HbA1c. Like, those type of things are going to get glossed over and forgotten about because people just aren't going. They're afraid. So we as PTs really need to get better at like stepping up our ability to ask some of those medical questions, to get into those scenarios and understand which details actually lead us to believe, oh, my patient's not actually safe to exercise because that blood pressure med they changed a year ago is actually causing all these problems, and they didn't go back to get checked because they were afraid of their practitioner. They were afraid of getting COVID. So there are all these things that we need to kind of like take into consideration. You know, there are reports going around through the country, but mostly based in New York City because that's kind of the epicenter of the US's outbreak, that talk actually about how the rate of heart attacks is decreasing in hospitals. But what people are saying is it's not actually that heart attacks are decreasing, it's that people are having the symptoms of a heart attack, chest pain, nausea, radiating symptoms in the jaw arm, et cetera, but they're not going to the hospital because they feel that the hospital is less safe than suffering from cardiac symptoms at their home. What they are finding is that there's an increase, a very large spike, especially in New York City, of people who are reporting cardiac arrest in the home. Now, cardiac arrest and heart attacks are different. Cardiac arrest is more severe, right? It's when the heart literally stops and needs immediate care. Otherwise, death is pretty much imminent. Whereas most cardiac arrests, there are cardiac events like heart attacks that precede them. So they think that this spike in cardiac arrest is because no one's seeking care for their heart attack. And so these people are becoming more and more significantly affected until they can't be helped. So this is just one example of how people aren't seeking the care that they normally would because they feel unsafe in the system. So again, as PTs, if we're seeing someone over telehealth practice or in person, we need to step it up. We need to be taking blood pressures. We need to be looking at heart rate. We need to get better at screening vitals and bloods, oxygen saturation levels. We need to get better at understanding like what glucose levels mean what, like asking the patient, hey, have you had this checked recently? If so, what was it? Like, was it close to the mark of diabetes? Was it not? Is it managed? Like, we need to have a lot more of these things in our toolbox because these patients are going to be coming to us more and more unbeknownst to them. And we need to get better at screening that stuff. Not to mention the fact that a lot of these referral patterns that people have, like, I mean, we're on the heart example, we might as well stay there, right? For cardiac issues, there's all sorts of referral. For men, it's a lot more common that it's on that left side, that it goes down the arm, that it follows the ulnar nerve pattern and sometimes radiates into the jaw. But for women, it can be all over the place. It can be a bilateral radiation, it can be central, it can be upper mid TL junction region pain. We need to understand that some of these patterns may present to us, and not because patients are confused or stupid, but because they're not going and getting these checkups to understand that they have underlying problems, right? It's just that they're fearful of the system, but they're not afraid of us. You know, PT in general doesn't ever feel like to patients that we're really part of the medical system. And maybe it's because we're not taking blood, or maybe it's because we're not prescribing pharmaceuticals, which is awesome. But as part of that, we're also probably a little bit less scary. We're a little bit less daunting. It might seem easier for a person to feel like they can seek out physical therapy for that upper back pain. But damn, people, if we don't understand that when someone talks about that area of back pain, to ask the questions about cardiovascular history, familial history, does it change with activity? What kind of activity? Oh, that's interesting. It's mostly when you walk up the stairs or if you walk quickly. Okay, that might not be a thoracic issue, that might be cardiac. Like, we need to get better at understanding and screening a lot of these things. Because as I mentioned, people are going to have these chronic conditions that are either unassessed and never known to them or not managed currently, right? So we need to get good at some of these questions. The other thing that keeps coming up sort of in the medical lit is talking about a lot of mental health stuff. A couple different mental health organizations, I'm going to look because otherwise I'll get it wrong, are coming together to create what's called the Mental Health and Suicide Prevention National Response to COVID-19 Program. See, it's a lot of words. That's why I would have gotten it wrong. But basically, after doing a Gallup poll that looked at like 8,000 people across the states, they found that especially for people that are sort of in young to middle age, 18 to 45-ish, the rate of mental health issues, or the people that reported that their mental health is being affected, is over a quarter. So 1 in 4 people feel like their mental health is being affected just by COVID practices. So we really need to step up and become more aware of what anxiety looks like. What does depression look like? What about PTSD? How do we manage that? Where do we refer people? And what can we do to actually make sure that people are getting the help they need so that suicide does not become an issue? They're all aspects that we talk about in our primary care physical therapy course: mental health, cardiovascular screening, respiratory health, et cetera, et cetera. But I just really want to encourage everyone out there that we need more information. We as PTs need to get better at understanding some of these background medical issues, and we should have been before, like to step up our game. But now that COVID's playing, right? Like now that the scene is totally different, it's more imperative than ever that we really step up as clinicians and get good at this stuff. As one of our previous students from the last cohort of the primary care physical therapy course said, "You don't know what you don't know." Brilliantly put. You don't know what you don't know. Like if you think that only possibilities A through D exist, it's impossible for you to screen through possibilities E through J. We need to expand our horizons and really become a bigger part of the medical system. And without having a better education and a better ability to screen and to understand what our questions and our screening techniques really mean, we can't do that. So I hope you guys all have a great day. And I hope that you start stepping up. Ask some more questions, get more information. As PTs, we need to do the best we can for our patients. And the only way to do that is to become better educated ourselves. All right. Happy Tuesday.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.